Coming to you live from her very own living room is Mrs. Silva with special guest Mrs. Wigglehorn. With all of you. I miss you so much. You know what? Today I've invited Mrs. Wigglehorn to teach you all about main idea and supporting details. And I think you'll enjoy Mrs. Wigglehorn. She's from England and she just knows so much about main idea and supporting details. Mrs. Wigglehorn, we are so glad to have you here on our show. Mrs. Silva, I am so glad to be here. Hello, everyone. So glad to be able to teach all of you about main idea and supporting details. I know that you will truly enjoy it. Shall we begin, Mrs. Silva? Well, Mrs. Wigglehorn, I believe we're ready to begin. Take it away. Well, Mrs. Silva's class, I am so glad to be here with you to teach you about main ideas and supporting details. So we're going to take a look at my screen as you guys are all watching. So main ideas and details. We're going to start with topic. Now, topic is very important whenever we're talking about main ideas and details. A topic is one or two words that tell what the text is about. You can usually tell what the topic is from the title. So you can just look at the title and say, oh, I know what that's about. Let's take a look. So this book, Who Was Walt Disney? And I hope you all know, since you do live in Florida, the topic of this book is Walt Disney. The text is all about Walt Disney. Well, how do we know this? Well, let's again take a look at the title. Who was Walt Disney? So we know the topic is going to be about Walt Disney. Understand? All right, we're going to move right along. Let's take a look and see if you can try. All right, what are the topics of these books? The first one, Little Kids' First Big Book of Space. What do you think the topic could be of Little Kids' First Big Book of Space? Again, let's look at the title. First Big Book of Space. You're right. It's going to be about a big book of space. The sun, the moon, the stars, the planets, all of that. Take a look at the next one. I Survived the Sinking of the Titanic, 1912. What do you think this book, what do you think the topic is of this book? Why, yes, you are right. Excellent. It's going to be about the sinking of the Titanic of 1912. Finally, let's take a look at our last book, and you tell me what you think the topic could be. Discovering Washington, D.C. activity book. So what do you think the Discovering Washington, D.C. activity book could be about? Why, yes, you're correct. It's about discovering Washington, D.C. Now, keywords there, activity book. Is it just about discovering Washington, D.C., or do you think there are some activities in there that you can probably do that tell you more about Washington, D.C.? You're right. There are activities there that tell you a little bit more about Washington, D.C. Now, main idea. A main idea is the most important idea that the author is writing about. The topic, it's a full sentence. It could be one or it could be two sentences, but it is the thing that the author is trying to tell you the most about. What the most important thing is going to be the main idea. And there are a few clues or a few places that you can look that you can find the main idea. Let's take a look at them. You can usually tell what the main idea is from the introduction and the conclusion. So remember, just like in our writing, our introduction introduces us to what we're writing about, just like in your animal paper that you've been doing with Mrs. Silva. The introduction tells what animal you're doing. Your conclusion just restates that introduction. Therefore, the main idea can be found in your introduction and your conclusion both. Let's look. For example, I'm going to read this to you. Follow along quietly as I read. The Titanic was thought to be the unsinkable ship. After the sinking of the Titanic, rules and laws were instituted to make ocean travel safer. The Titanic had a total of 20 lifeboats to carry 1,178 passengers. The Titanic was carrying 2,223 passengers. Even if all of the lifeboats were filled to capacity, there were not enough to hold all of the passengers on the ship. Now, ships are required to have enough lifeboats for all passengers on board. It is believed that there was a ship close enough to the Titanic to help save more passengers. However, no one from that ship was on the radio because it was so late. New laws require that someone is listening to the radio 24 hours per day. Travel on the ocean is safer today because of the Titanic. Well, let's take a look. What could the main idea of this be? Let's look at our introduction and our conclusion and see. Take a look for yourselves. The Titanic was thought to be the unsinkable ship. Well, is that what this whole article is about? You're right, it's not. Let's look at the next sentence in our introduction. After the sinking of the Titanic, rules and laws were instituted to make ocean travel safer. Could that be the main idea? Is our whole article about making ocean travel safer because of the Titanic? All right, let's look at our conclusion, that last sentence. Travel on the ocean is safer today because of the Titanic? Again, does that tell us what the entire article is about? That because of the Titanic, ocean travel is now safer? I believe that those would be our main ideas. And you are correct if you chose those. So our topic is the Titanic, and our main idea is, after the sinking of the Titanic, rules and laws have made ocean travel safer. You guys are such smart students. I'm glad you're answering with all the right answers. Now, we have our main idea. Let's take a look at the supporting detail. A supporting detail is a fact or an example that tells more about the main idea. There are lots of teensy-weensy tiny details, but we don't want to get stuck on those. We want to get stuck on the ones that tell us more about the main idea. Let's look at our article again. You can usually find the supporting details in the body of the text, so all of those extra things. Let's take a look. So when we look at what our main idea is, and our main idea was that after the sinking of the Titanic, ocean travel has been made safer. So what details support that main idea? Well, let's look. Now ships are required to have enough lifeboats for all passengers on board. That tells us that because the Titanic did not have enough lifeboats on board, now they are required to have enough lifeboats for all passengers on board. So yes, that tells us that after the sinking of the Titanic, ocean travel was made safer. The next one, new laws require that someone is listening to the radio 24 hours per day. Again, that's telling us no one on the Titanic was listening to the radio, but now new laws require that someone is. So again, the sinking of the Titanic has made ocean laws safer, and it's made it safer to travel because of the Titanic. Those are supporting details that support the main idea. So again, our topic was Titanic. Our main idea was after the sinking of the Titanic, rules and laws have made ocean travel safer. And then those supporting details are now ships are required to have enough lifeboats for all passengers on board. I, for one, am very happy about that. And new laws also require that someone is listening to the radio 24 hours per day. And again, I would not want that as my job, but I'm really glad we have it. So let's take a look and see if you can identify the topic, main idea, and supporting details. The writers of the United States Constitution created 3 branches of government that share powers. The legislative branch is responsible for writing the laws. It is made up of the House of Representatives and the Senate. Voters elect representatives to serve in the legislative branch. The executive branch of the government is in charge of making sure the laws are enforced or being followed. The head of the executive branch is the president. The judicial branch of government is the branch that interprets the meaning of the Constitution and the laws. The judicial branch is made up of the federal courts. All three branches of the government have different powers that are outlined in the United States Constitution. Well, first, what is our topic? What do you think our topic is? Yes, if you said the three branches of government, or the government of the United States, or the three branches of government of the United States, all of those would be correct. That is what our topic is about. And we didn't even have a cover of a book or a title to tell us that, so good job. Let's look at the main idea. So, looking again, and I apologize for that delay, sometimes we have glitches with things, of course, but let's go back to our reading here and take a look. So, the main idea, or the topic we know, is the United States government. Well, what would the main idea be? Let's take a look at those introduction, or that introduction and that conclusion. So that introduction. The writers of the United States Constitution created three branches of government that share powers. Do you think that's what our entire article is about? Yes, you are correct. Let's look at the last sentence, our conclusion. All three branches of the government have different powers that are outlined in the United States Constitution. Is that what our entire article is about? Why, yes, it is. So we already have our main idea that, one, the government has three branches of powers, and they share those powers. Our topic is the United States government. Our main idea is that there are three branches of power, and they all share that power. So again, our introduction and conclusion told us that. Let's look at the supporting details now. The supporting details, remember, we don't want those teensy-weensy details. We want those details that tell us more about the main idea. So we're looking for things that tell us about the three branches of government and their shared powers. The legislative branch is responsible for writing the laws. Well, but does that tell us anything about their shared powers or three branches of government? No, it does not. It is made up of the House of Representatives and the Senate. And I'm sorry, I actually confused those for a moment. The first sentence does tell us, it is a supporting detail. Even Mrs. Wigglehorn does make some mistakes occasionally. But you're right, the legislative branch is responsible for writing the laws. It tells us what that branch of government does. That next sentence tells us, okay, who it's made up of, but it doesn't give us real information about the three branches of government. Let's look at our next sentences. The executive branch of government is in charge of making sure the laws are enforced or being followed. The head of the executive branch is the president. Well, which one of those sentences tells us more about the three branches of government and our main idea? You are correct. Excellent. The executive branch of the government is in charge of making sure the laws are enforced or being followed. We don't need to know who the head of the executive branch is. That does not contribute to our main idea. Let's look at the last one. The judicial branch of government is the branch that interprets the meaning of the Constitution and the laws. The judicial branch is made up of the federal courts. Well, looking at that, which one tells us more about our main idea and supports it? You are correct. So smart. Beautiful, beautiful, Owlette, Mrs. Silva, just wonderful, wonderful students. All right, so the judicial branch of government is the branch that interprets the meaning of the Constitution and laws. Again, it tells us what that branch of government does, and it supports our main idea. But we, again, do not need to know what it's made up of because, again, that is not something that is supporting our main idea that there are three branches of government. Excellent, excellent job, students. So what are some differences between a main idea and a topic? Think to yourself, maybe turn to your pet, or maybe turn to your mom or dad or grandma or grandfather or a brother or a sister and tell them what is the difference between a main idea and a topic. All right. So a main idea and a topic. A main idea gives us a little more information. It tells us just a little more detail about what our topic is. So it's kind of like a pyramid. The topic is at the top. That's whatever our article or our book is about. The main idea gives us kind of a little more detail of what that topic is about. And finally, those supporting details come underneath the main idea and they support the main idea. Why do you think authors include those supporting details to support that main idea? Tell one of the people around you or tell yourself, why do you think authors include supporting details? Well, if you said they include supporting details because one, it's kind of boring without them, then you would be correct. If you just had the main idea in a book and that was it would be a pretty short book, wouldn't it? Those supporting details help add flavor and richness. They add meat to the story or the article that you're reading. Just like in the writing you're doing with Mrs. Silva, I know she wants you to expand on your favorite animal and the facts that you're putting about your favorite animal. And so the supporting details are important because they keep your reader interested. And we most definitely want to keep our reader interested. So I am so thankful that I could show you all about main idea and all about supporting details and topics. And I am so glad that Mrs. Silva invited me here just to speak with such wonderful, smart, intelligent students. It has been a joy, such a joy to meet each one of you. And I hope that you've learned a little bit about main idea and details. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for joining us on the Mrs. Silva Reading Show.